Hey, Nabeel. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks for agreeing to this interview.
I just can't resist a phone call or a FaceTime with you, Jenny. It's always fun.
I still remember many years ago when we met in a coffee shop. And back then you were just a super enthusiastic dental student. And that enthusiasm hasn't left you. That passion for, what emerging technologies can do for future of dentistry is always there. So I want to dial the clock back a little bit and then just, explore what your journey was on digital dentistry side, from school, and now you're practicing dentist, and now, doing a variety of organizational activities.
Sure. Shoot whatever questions you have my way.
So, well, first of all, how did you decide to become a dentist?
Great question. I come from a family of healthcare professionals, five uncles that are my dad and four uncles that are physicians. And I grew up with them, just as a child, listening to their pre-op phone calls or post-op phone calls. It's a profession that you don't leave at work, that you take home with you, and it becomes part of the family culture. So I was always drawn to that patient-doctor relationship. And as a child, I was also a tinkerer. So I would sail, I would sew, and I wanted something very kinesthetic and hands-on. And when I kind of put that together, it just became apparent that I think dentistry would be a good fit for me.
I also remember, I think it was during your wedding, I actually heard the story about you being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think I had early entrepreneurial instincts. I used to, every time when you're in school, certain things become fads. So when yo-yos became a fad, I supplied the entire school with yo-yos. I had a bicycle that a few kids liked, so I would actually rent out my bicycle and run behind them home.
So I know, I think your brother told that story, actually. I still remember some of it. That's, I think it kind of reflects on what you do today. And I want to hear the journey, how you, become, just a dental student, how you were exploring outside of whatever school is providing you. And now you're continuing that exploration on the journey of digital dentistry, because there's so much.
Mm-hmm. I've always cared about and always intrigued about emerging technologies. My undergrad was actually a self-design major called Science and Conscience. So it was the study of the sciences and then the study of sciences. So it was science from like a physical perspective, and then science from a social science perspective. I was always curious in terms of when you have an advancement in society, how does that ripple across society and change society? So that was my core focus as my undergrad. And it was roughly around that time when I graduated from college, 2011, that sort of era was when we started to have that emergence of all open source software and in 3D printing. And I was reading about this and I was like, whoa, like this is big. Like if you don't see the writing on the wall, like we're missing it completely. And then I started in dental school, and part of schooling in general, whatever discipline you're in, you go to school often to learn the history of your field.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the base. So I remember, in dentistry, we have to carve things. You have to carve a tooth in wax. And I'm like, why don't we just have it designed? And then I don't have to carve it. Why are we doing all these, injection, almost like a type of injection mold to make dentures? Why are we doing lost wax techniques, all these techniques, when we could just design it and make it? And it'd be easier, faster, and better, wouldn't require so many manual hours. So I would go around my dental school and ask, do we have anyone 3D printing? Anyone, can I learn CAD CAM? This is part of it. And, the answers were like, yeah, it'll be the future. It's just not now. And I'm like, but it's going to happen. Can't you see what's happening? So then I'd go around to hacker spaces in the Mission District in SF, around San Francisco, and everyone was like tinkering here or there, but there wasn't any true instruction. And then that's when a good friend of mine, Ahmed Rahim, came across 3D Heals as, you know, an emerging community in San Francisco at the time. It was like, Nabeel, you need to go to that group. I think that group has, you know, can help you out here. And, you know, that's how I found 3D Heals. And honestly, you know, as a dental student, I think I was maybe a second-year dental student at the time. And, you know, I think that what 3D Heals did for me was, I mean, essentially it connected me to you, Jenny, and you sort of epitomized that movement of someone who believes in like decentralized personal medicine that people can actually get. And so I think that right from that values perspective of, you know, where you hope medicine can be and where technology can push medicine in general, I think that's just so powerful, and it's something that has sort of helped guide my thoughts in my journey. Whew.
Thank you. Well, you know, actually, believe it or not, I wish when I met you, I wish I was in your shoes, because when I was in medical school, you know, I'm a very goal-oriented person. All I want is to finish the projects, finish the school, score high, you know, finish the tasks that were given, and really miss the opportunity to look outside, to explore what else alternative solutions there are for medicine. So I wish I was in your shoes. And the other thing I realized, you know, back then and until this day is you're a super human person. Like, you're very people friendly. Your communication skills is above and beyond. And because of this, you met a lot of innovators and cool people in digital dentistry. And I mean, the reason we have such a robust dental panel for 3D Heals 2020 is very much because of your connections. You want to share some of your cool journey of how you meet these very awesome people?
Well, I mean, I think like I just feel so blessed. You know, I feel blessed that we have the opportunity to to basically, we have freedom of thought to say, you know, this is what I want to do, and then we have the communication skills and abilities to reach out to people. It's incredible. You know, I feel grateful to 3D Heals because 3D Heals focuses on broader healthcare printing and the ability to meet people in, you know, on the orthopedic surgeons that are doing 3D printing, radiologists and so prosthetists. And then personally within our discipline of dentistry, you know, some incredible work going on and people dedicating a lot of time and effort to unpackage this technology. So, you know, essentially, you know, just reaching out to folks, you know, asking questions about their work, trying to learn more. You know, I'm really excited to have, you know, a few people on the panel who I've, on this next conference who, you know, I just consider friends of mine for a number of years now, and how those relationships emerged. So one is Dr. Coelho from Portugal, who makes the, who basically has the individualized 3D printed implants for when our standard implants today just don't work. And, you know, reached out to him, a warm conversation from the start on social media. Eventually, you know, one day in a chat, I told him, you know, Roy, I'm going to come visit you in Portugal. He was like, come. So a few months later, you know, I was talking with my fiance at the time, and I was like, you know what? I really want to go visit, you know, Roy in Portugal. I just think what he's up to is amazing. And so she was like, go. So I booked a flight to Portugal. I got an Airbnb on a sailboat, and we spent a couple of days together, and I learned so much. And now I'm glad to be able to take what Rory's doing and bring it into the 3D Heals community, let our other individuals in the dental, oral surgery community know, and let other people in healthcare know, because we can all learn from each other. Something that I've learned working with 3D Heals is knowledge should not be siloed. We need to know what's happening with the pharmacology 3D printers so we have an idea of what's possible. You know, the orthopedic surgeons advise us, everyone, you have to create a community that everyone can learn from. And because knowledge, I was once in a conference and they said, you know, the mind is like a parachute, you have to keep it open. And the larger our minds are, the more air, we'll capture on our journey to where we need to go.
Totally. I totally agree. I mean, in a way, our passion for, the future of healthcare using 3D printing make the world smaller. All these people who speak different languages, either from Portugal, Brazil, America, Asia. I mean, we now share the same stream of passion and hoping that we can reinvent either dentistry or healthcare in general. And I think one thing that we're working really hard, both of us, is trying to push the knowledge into more general public and more future generation, like the dental students, etc. Any thoughts on how we can, do a better job educating the next generation of dentists?
That's a great question. I think that, and I think this is something that we both share, if I may say, I think one reason why I like you so much is we're both very similar. We're both dyslexic. So, I think for, so thinking about learning styles and learning opportunities is something that is just a daily part of my life. It's how I learn. And I think that for our next generation, whether we were looking at if COVID never happened or if, technologies are moving, the train is moving, we just have to decide, as the future happens, where are we going to be? And what do we need people to know? Especially now, in the middle of this pandemic, the world that we step into is vastly different. And skills are going to need to be different. Some skills are obsolete. Some skills we need to have. And 3D printing, CAD milling, CAD/CAM, 3D technologies is going to play such a big role in that future. So that's something where I'm actually going to be presenting more questions, I guess, at this time than answers. But I think that whenever we have these times where as a society we have to pivot, we have to think, what skills do we need to know in order to make that pivot happen into the new normal, and then develop the skills to reach out, to educate. And that's what I hope that the 3D Heals community can pull that knowledge together, and we can train, starting with our other, healthcare colleagues in our fields. But then I think another opportunity, as you said, will be reaching actually into, those that are, if 3D Heals was at this level now, and I was a first-year dental student or first-year medical student, right? To give them the basic skills to understand these technologies as they go through their education, light bulbs will be flashing. So by the time that they're done with their formal schooling, they'll just have such an amazing base, network, ideas, skills. When that comes together, that's when I think we'll really see, these technologies be carried to another level.
Yeah, I mean, just like computer science now is in the classroom for K-12 education, it is very possible that CAD/CAM skills, 3D printing skills could be part of, standard curriculum for dental schools and maybe even medical schools or surgical trainings.
Yeah. And I think, in this time, sorry to cut you off there, as we see in this time that our just-in-time supply chain really left us vulnerable.
Yeah.
And now we have these efforts to try to, build local production economies fast in order just to get basic items. In that way, I don't think that we will look to these centralized manufacturing and these long supply chains. Oh, let me order something from halfway across the world and I expect it tomorrow. I think we're going to be looking to those systems with a little more skepticism.
Yeah.
And we're going to want to build that local manufacturing capacity just to protect our institutions and our communities. And
also using a new technology for alternative solutions, right? You can have both centralized supply chain or decentralized supply chain.
Yes.
And now with 3D printing, you could actually have that alternative solution.
Yes, yes.
Speaking of opportunity to learn, we do have an excellent 3D Heals 2020 digital dental panels. You want to, introduce these panels to our audience?
The panelists. Let's see here. It's so many awesome people. I don't want to misrepresent or just not give everyone their light. Let's. Did you have the list of all the panelists, and then we can just talk about them?
Well, we can just talk about what are the general topics that
Great.
we're going to share with the audience.
Something that since you brought me on board to help organize the global conferences, I've always thought about what are the most important themes of that time that people need to know. So when we had our first conference in 2017, that was when people were looking at the surgical applications of 3D printing in dentistry, how to guide implants, do other types of surgeries.
Yeah.
And we had a rock star panel that year. The year after, in 2018, we had an amazing panel that was focusing on basically mainly the prosthetics of dentistry.
Yeah.
And, Rick Jacobs, Michael Schurer, Myra, Valerie, I mean, they were amazing during that panel. This year is interesting because as I see the landscape of dentistry, we have some amazing 3D printers that have come out in the last few years that we did not have before.
Yeah. And more coming out, by the way.
More coming out. It's not hard for a dental office at this time to get a DLP printer, a resin-based printer in their office. This is something like 6 years ago, you'd say, whoa. Our materials are pretty amazing. And Rick Jacobs, who was one of our speakers, really played a big role across the industry, getting us the materials, the resins we need for our different applications.
Yeah.
The bottleneck that I see right now in the landscape of digital dentistry as it leads in these different areas, it's our software.
Yeah.
We're bottlenecked by our software in a few ways. One way is how you operate these softwares. As dentists, we're trained to carve, to sculpt, like little Michelangelos of teeth.
Yeah.
We're not trained to click, push, extrude, cut. It's not part of the thinking. And that's where, we can then help dentists in the future. But we need softwares that can almost speak our language of design. Mm-hmm. And as we move forward into that, we'll see a much higher adoption rate. Because now, I get calls from dentists, quite a few actually, saying, I just bought a 3D printer, what do I do? Buying the 3D printer, buying the resin, it's not enough. We have to do more on that education side. And that's where, I'd hope that we can develop programs in the future. But these panels this year speak directly to that. Yeah. So we have people of different expertises in 3D printing from different areas in dentistry, and they'll be speaking largely to that area of how software can power 3D printing.
Yeah. What I'm excited about is digital dentistry really is the front runner of 3D printing in healthcare. I mean, if anything, decentralized, personalized healthcare delivery is really manifesting dentistry. It's going to manifest in dentistry first. Implants, prosthetics, surgical planning, everything is, it's crazy that now a single dental office can perform all of those, right? Using 3D printing.
I think it's, I chuckle because, I practice personally in California's Central Valley, which is the agricultural heartland of California. So I always find it funny when I'm asked to go to, San Francisco or Santa Clara, like the heartbeat of technology, so it's this kid from the Valley, teaching them on technology and how we're able to incorporate all of this in our dental office today. From our 3D CBCTs to our optical scans, meshing them, getting precise placements, planning out the prostheses. And I hope that this becomes more apparent or more standardized, and it will need to, because in the post-COVID era, the cost to operate our offices is shooting up. We were already struggling to find a price balance of healthcare services. And that's something that's dentistry has been struggling with, not just in, the last few years, but since the 1990s.
Yeah.
The cost of dental services since 1990 has increased twice that of inflation. So so we need something to kind of help us correct, and especially in a post-COVID era where we have to take our ops, our surgical, our dental operatories, our chairs from, what I would say, we have to step them, potentially to negative pressure rooms, have staff wear PAPRs, N95s. Our costs are just going to be increasing. So we need something here that can help our fellow clinicians create what they need for patients better and quicker. And I think that's our opportunity right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are a lot of players and factors in how eventually 3D printing is going to be scaled out in dentistry. We're not going to be able to answer all the questions in our conference, but I think we have a pretty good variety of people who have, various perspectives that can give people a list of what is the status right now that we have in digital dentistry, either from software, like you said, which will be a very big emphasis, but also materials and hardware. You can't really go without hardware. So
it's always evolving. I mean, there's never, we never have a conversation and it ends. It's always an evolving conversation. Hardware always has to improve, right? Materials always have to improve. Software has to improve. I think that, we're right on the cusp of something really amazing.
Yeah.
And it's happening, and it's really amazing to see it unfold. That softwares are becoming, they're getting there. From what before, these CAD/CAM softwares were proprietary softwares that cost a couple of thousands of dollars. When I was a student, I looked at those softwares and I'm like, do I go homeless for a month, or do I buy a piece of software? Right? I mean, you couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And even as a solo practitioner or a small group practice office, to pay thousands of dollars for software when you don't know the return and all of this, for some that are just enthusiasts, sure, they'll do it to sink the cost to keep themselves entertained, or, to play with it. But for a true mass market solution, you need something more accessible. So I'm glad to see that there's now a movement within the dental community to take softwares like MeshMix or Blender, which are just open engineering softwares, and build modules and understandings to teach dentists just how to use these softwares. So we don't have that cost hurdle. It's just more of an expertise hurdle. And I'm looking forward to seeing that develop. One of our speakers, Kevin Yoder, is doing some amazing work working with Blender and creating modules. And
Kevin is a super interesting character. It's really entertaining, I would say.
I really like the guy, and I can't wait for everyone to hear him. And Blender is also a software that Roy, with his individualized implants, craniofacial implants, they build their implants in Blender. They built the modules to design these in Blender. I didn't know
that. That's awesome.
These softwares can help an individual in a dental office make something as simple as a night guard so people don't grind their teeth, all the way to a 3D printed craniofacial implant. So we need to have these conversations, bring the brains together, bring the minds together, ask the questions. And that's what I hope that we'll be doing.
Yeah, I think, we also just need to inspire people to change the whole thinking process from subtractive to additive. Mm-hmm. We have challenges ahead, but if we're not thinking about how to solve these problems, we're not ever going to get there. Yeah. So, it's always fun to talk to you, Nabeel. Like, we can have this kind of conversation all day long. I know that. But thanks so much for chatting with me and have this interview with me.
Always.
And I still want to ask you about the sailboat Airbnb situation at another time. That sounds like a separate story on its own. Mm-hmm. But thank you so much for joining me. And I'll see you 3D Heals 2020.
Well, I'll be there virtually.
Thanks.